The South African Federation of Trade Unions will hold its official May Day rally in Bloemfontein this morning. eNCA Samkele Maseko is there. He joins us now live. Samkele, very interesting that Saftu's leadership won't be addressing workers at that main event today.
No, Michelle. It's not that Saftu's leadership won't be addressing workers. Saftu's leadership will be addressing workers. The president, Mac Shabalala, will be here speaking to the 24-odd affiliates that belong to Saftu, the South African Federation of Trade Unions. It's just that the renowned Labour politician in South Africa who fights for the workers, who's been the General Secretary for workers for almost 2 decades, Zwelinzima Vavi, will not be addressing the main Saftu May Day rally. It will be its president, Mac Shabalala. Zwelinzima Vavi is out in Port Elizabeth addressing Saftu's other May Day rally there in Port Elizabeth. Remember that is arguably one of NUMSA's strongest strongholds, where Ford and all the motor car vehicles are all situated there. So Zwelinzima Vavi is in Port Elizabeth, and here in Bloemfontein it's Mac Shabalala who will be addressing the 24 affiliates of the Saftu Federation here in Bloemfontein at the Vista Arena at the University of the Free State's South Campus.
So Samkele, do you think that it's somewhat strange, or at least remarkable in some way, that Zwelinzima Vavi will be addressing workers literally just meters away from where COSATU's official rally is taking place?
Well, it's not strange. You'd come to realize that Zwelinzima Vavi is a renowned mobilizer. You'd remember his hashtag and slogan when he left COSATU was "Don't mourn, mobilize." So he's been mobilizing. You remember that they also had a rally, a march last week against the amendments to the Labour Law Act along with the minimum wage, where he mobilized thousands of members of Saftu, and particularly those who come from NUMSA, onto the streets of Johannesburg to march against the amendments to the Labour Law Act along as with the minimum wage. But I'm going to ask my colleague Linge Ndabampi just to show you the cake that's there on stage. You'd remember that Saftu is celebrating a year since its formation. So the president of the federation, Mac Shabalala, will probably toast to that cake there. You've seen even on Twitter Zwelinzima Vavi saying that they've grown in leaps and bounds since Saftu was formed, and that those who are particularly unhappy with COSATU and its affiliates are now shifting towards a new independent and fighting trade union movement and federation, as he labels it. That's Zwelinzima Vavi saying that they're independent, they're fighting trade union federation that's there to oppose COSATU. But one begs to bring about the question, how will these labor movements and these federations fight for the issues of workers and labor if they are so fragmented, Michelle?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's an incredibly important Workers' Day, Samkele, not least because there are so many challenges facing workers in the country today. National minimum wage was meant to get going by the 1st of May today. We know that the bus drivers strike well into its 2nd week. We've got that threat of the public servants as well going on strike. It's a tough environment economically. It's a tough labor environment.
Yes, indeed, it's a tough labor environment. If you look at the current VAT increase from 14% to 15%, unions have been very vocal and outspoken about this issue. You remember that COSATU itself has been criticizing this move to increase VAT from 14% to 15%. You've got all sorts of increases through this 1% VAT increase. Yes, you've got some goods that are not going to be affected by this increase in order not to burden the downtrodden and the poor. But it brings about the question, in this current economic environment, are workers under siege, or are the interests of business being put ahead of those of workers? So it'll be rather interesting on what the president of COSATU's Dumo Dlamini has to say when he's alongside the president of the country and of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, in that all-important COSATU May Day rally, which our colleagues Pamandla Goke is covering. And also, just about a kilometer away will be the very outspoken and vibrant and radical Zwelinzima Vavi, who will be speaking at the May Day rally for Saftu there in Port Elizabeth. And it will also be rather interesting on what Mac Shabalala, the president of Saftu, has to say here when it comes to those issues of labor and the current economic climate that impacts negatively against the workers in the country. So it's a rather interesting political and labor environment, particularly seeing that the workers themselves and the worker representation is so fragmented. When you look at the formation of Saftu, you've also got the likes of NATU, which have their own affiliates such as AMCU in their ranks who've also been fighting for that 12,500 rand increase for mine workers during the 2012 wildcat strike in the Platinum Belt. So workers are indeed seemingly under siege in this current political dispensation. Also remember, there have been criticism to President Cyril Ramaphosa's economic advisors and the team that he has come to put together to go out and get that all-important investment, which Trevor Manuel and Mcebisi Jonas form part of. Many people have dubbed it that it's the 1996 class project reunited or coming back together in a collaborated or in a new reformed manner. You'd remember that there was criticism by Zwelinzima Vavi when he was still the General Secretary of COSATU at the time that Thabo Mbeki, the former President TM, is pushing neoliberal policies which were dubbed the 1996 class project.
And let's not forget, Samkele, plenty of important speeches to be made at these various May Day rallies today. And of course, everything that's said counts, given that we're a year to go until a national election.
It's rather interesting because many of these political or Labour May Day rallies have largely become political. I'll go to a comment by the founding General Secretary of COSATU, Jay Naidu, when he said that Labour politics in South Africa and the tripartite alliance died in 1996 when politics took over and unions basically used, members and union leaders basically used these unions in order to gain seats into parliament or become politicians through the African National Congress. So it's rather interesting. You'd remember that in 2012, when Zwelinzima Vavi's name, along with Ivan Jim and others, were raised to go into the ANC's National Executive Committee, they declined. It's only a few like Senzeni Zokwana who went ahead and Dumo Dlamini to be elected into the ANC's National Executive Committee. Some of them went on to be members of parliament. So it's rather interesting. Even the former General Secretary of Nahau before Bering Soke, he went into parliament to become an MP. So it feeds into this narrative that unions in South Africa are being used by union leaders in order for themselves to gain seats in political parties, predominantly the African National Congress, so that they can become politicians. For instance, when you look at Saftu said that they are not aligning themselves to any political formation or any political party. They will be non-partisan, but they will be involved in speaking on political issues. Hence, Saftu and Zwelinzima Vavi have been very outspoken on the issue of the Guptas and the former President Jacob Zuma, and also the current political dispensation of President Cyril Ramaphosa. So it's rather interesting on how they will navigate their own waters going towards the 2019 elections. You remember that stance that NUMSA took at its special national conference to no longer support the African National Congress and to stay away from politics and not support any political party, but be apolitical. It also prompted the likes of EFF President and leader CIC Julius Malema to say that Ivan Jim, Zwelinzima Vavi and Joseph Matundra of AMKU must now come together and sit and form a gigantic federation that will oppose COSATU. As to what extent that has taken place and shape, only time will tell. But as it currently stands, AMKU and Joseph Matundra have not set foot when it comes to Saftu politics. They're not an affiliate of Saftu. It's just Ivan Jim and NUMSA and other 24 affiliates such as SAPU and FAU and Salipsu who are form part of this new federation. But indeed, politics seems to be dominating the labor politics and the labor movement in the country for the past 2 decades or so.
Absolutely. Well, workers will be listening closely to everything that's said, particularly that keynote address said to be given by President Cyril Ramaphosa. That was our reporter, Samkele Maseko. He is at the South African Federation of Trade Unions main May Day rally in Bloemfontein for us this morning.